Hello everybody, today we are going to be looking at a way too early 2025 NFL mock draft. At this point, obviously, it's just for the draft sickos like me that just can't get enough of the draft, but it's a great way to just take a look ahead, see some of the best players for the upcoming college football season, where they might slot in for the NFL draft. Let's just go ahead and dive right into it. PFF did make this order, so don't get too mad at me. I didn't change anything up. Ultimately, that's not really what we're looking for here. It's just going to be talking about some of the best players in this upcoming class and potentially some early fits for them as well. Starting off with the Carolina Panthers at number 1. Obviously, if they're picking at number 1, maybe Bryce Young is not the quarterback of the future, and they certainly take a look at that position. That being said, I don't think the quarterback class in 2025 is particularly strong. There could certainly be risers this upcoming season, and I certainly hope that's the case, but Carson Beck, I do think, is the best quarterback as of right now. Shedeur Sanders is incredibly divisive with his, off-the-field stuff. Quinn Ewers has a lot of physical talent, but he's super inaccurate at times. He's inconsistent. Arch Manning's right on his heels there at Texas as well. Milroe and Drew Aller, both super inconsistent players. So I definitely think that quarterback is not going to be the strength of this class. It's more on the defensive line, maybe in the tackle position, corners, stuff like that, where this class really does shine. And that starts with James Pierce Jr. out of Tennessee. Certainly kind of the favorite at this point to be the first overall pick if it's not a quarterback. Had 13 sacks last year in 2023. He definitely is a pure speed rusher, and he definitely showed a lot of ability to threaten the outside shoulder. He occasionally showed some inside counter moves as well. I definitely think he has the talent to be, this high of a selection, one of the premier edge rushers. That's ultimately going to be who we select for the Panthers at pick 1. At number 2 for the Patriots, I definitely think that they would want to go offense because you want to build around Drake May, get talent around him. Will Campbell, I think, makes a lot of sense for them. He was a tackle for LSU, blindside protection for Jaden Daniels. Definitely a very smooth, consistent player. There are times that the technique does drop off a little bit or, something like that, but I think he's strong, he's athletic, he's got a good anchor. Definitely the kind of tackle that you would want protecting your franchise quarterback, and I definitely think that there's a decent chance that Campbell could be a top 5 pick in 2025. For the Broncos up at number 3, they could definitely go wide receiver, they could go corner. There's a lot of different ways in which they could go. Bo Nix, obviously the quarterback of the future as of right now for this team. I think Mason Graham is definitely going to be a player that is very, very highly thought of. I think he survives double teams really well. He's big, he's super athletic, he reads plays very effectively. I wouldn't be at all surprised if Mason Graham is a top 3 pick. And for the Broncos, I do think it makes sense. They could use some help on the interior of that defensive line, and Mason Graham would make a ton of sense to get tougher in the middle of that defense. At number 4 for the Tennessee Titans, if they're picking this high, maybe Will Levis isn't the quarterback of the future. That could certainly be in consideration, but I do think that they would want to continue to add weapons. Maybe DeAndre Hopkins isn't there much longer, if even at all. I think Luther Burden is an incredibly productive, explosive guy, especially after the catch. The Titans don't seem to believe in Treylon Burks too much, so I think Burden could be that real yak threat, somebody that you get the ball in his hands and he just explodes. He's a really good deep target as well. I would be a little bit surprised if he is not the first wide receiver off the board. Obviously a whole nother season to play for him, but he looked awesome at Missouri this past year. At number 5 for the New York Giants, it is going to be a quarterback. And like I said, Carson Beck is my number 1 quarterback as of right now from what I've seen. 24 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. They didn't ask him to do a ton at Georgia, but I thought he was very efficient. I think he showed good arm. I think he has pretty good decision making. He just does his job really well. I think he operates a scheme very well. And I could see him kind of being a similar type of quarterback prospect to somebody like J.J. McCarthy, who, did go pretty high in the 2024 draft because I think he operates a system really well. He's got good traits. I think Beck could absolutely be that type of player. I would have had him ranked above Bo Nix this past year. So, I definitely think Beck could be a top 10 pick. And I think most likely the first quarterback off the board. The Giants make a lot of sense, as I don't think Danny Dimes is the future by any means. Then at number 6 for the Washington Commanders. Going to go tackle Kelvin Banks Jr. out of Texas. He had a good year, just allowed 1 sack on 550 pass blocking snaps. I think he's a smooth mover. He's got good athleticism, length. There's definitely some inconsistencies with the technique, but really, you need to protect Jaden Daniels. You go ahead and get Kelvin Banks in that room. I think that makes a lot of sense for the Commanders on the offensive line to upgrade that position there. At number 7 for the Cardinals, definitely could go in a lot of different directions, but Will Johnson is a great cornerback prospect. Had 4 interceptions this past year. Was pretty consistently going up against the number 1 wide receiver on the other team. He definitely had some struggles here and there. Marvin Harrison Jr. certainly got his against Will Johnson, but he is a very complete corner. He's got great movement skills. He can definitely bump and run with you. Good man coverage ability. Instincts is there as well. I definitely think he has the makings of being a number 1 cornerback in the NFL, and it would not at all surprise me if he was a top 10 pick, maybe even a top 5 pick. I think for the Cardinals, it makes sense to continue to add to that secondary and get strong on defense. Next up at number 8, we have the Vikings. One interesting player in this draft is Abdul Carter, who is listed as a linebacker for Penn State. They're moving him to full-time edge. I definitely think he's shown explosiveness. He is definitely somebody that can get after the quarterback. He is very disruptive, plays all over the defense last year, and like I said, he is going to be moving to full-time edge rusher. He's 6'3", 250 pounds. True sophomore, so he'll be a junior coming out. Definitely still young, athletic. I could certainly see him going off the board pretty early with a very strong year. I think that explosiveness, that speed, that matches kind of what the Vikings really like. I think pairing him with Dallas Turner could be a very, very fun thing. And we have them taking Abdul Carter at pick number 8. For the Raiders, definitely think quarterback needs to be in play here. Maybe Quinn Ewers, if he is able to rein in some of the inconsistencies with his accuracy. Jalen Milroe, definitely has the athleticism. If he can become more consistent from the pocket and going through his reads. Drew Aller's a huge quarterback with a lot of potential, but Penn State really never let him swing it. I think Shedeur Sanders is the most likely to be picked in this spot. I think he's athletic. He is really good within kind of that West Coast scheme. Get the ball out quick, on time, on target. Don't think he has the hugest arm. I don't necessarily think that he's going to be the highest potential quarterback, but I could see him definitely being a top 10 pick. Somebody that I kind of view somewhat similarly to Jaden Daniels. I think Daniels was better coming out, but Sanders just has that mobility. He's not quite nearly the athlete that Jaden Daniels is, but kind of that pocket passer that can throw with touch. He can throw, with accuracy and consistency on short patterns. He's just not got the strongest arm, maybe has, a little bit of trouble over the middle of the field, things like that. And Sanders obviously is going to be a very divisive person as well, but I think the Raiders do need to take their quarterback of the future. I could certainly see that being Shedeur Sanders. At number 10, we have the Seattle Seahawks. I'm going to go with a just freak of freaks in Deon Walker here. Had an 80.6 PFF grade, and this dude just kind of lines up everywhere. He is massive, absolutely gigantic, 6'6", 348 pounds. There's definitely some inconsistencies on tape, but they'll line him up at edge rusher at times. He shows some good hand usage. He can win with raw power. His highlight tape is unreal. If he can get some of that consistency down, I definitely think he could be a top 10, top 5 pick. Walker is going to be a very fun player to watch. He's just such a unique build for the Seahawks. I do think they could add some size and beef to the middle of that defense. And Walker is a very fun player and somebody I'm very interested to see how he kind of moves up or down the board for the 2025 draft. At number 11 for the Saints, I definitely think they could look at quarterback, but I'm going to be going for edge rusher. Nick Squirton, it still has him listed as Purdue. He ended up transferring to Texas A&M. This guy, was super productive. 8 sacks, had 6 hits, 28 hurries at Purdue, and he was definitely a playmaker in the Big Ten. You look at him, he's got the size. He's 6'4", 260 pounds. That's the kind of edge that the Saints tend to really like. That big guy, he can defend the run. He's long, he's athletic. I definitely think that he could be somebody that the Saints target and could, potentially be a nice fit around that 10 to 15 range in the draft if he continues to produce and maybe elevate his game even further at Texas A&M. For the Tampa Bay Buccaneers up next, I definitely think that a very, very interesting player in this draft is Travis Hunter out of Colorado. He played wide receiver and corner for the Buffaloes, and he was really good at both. He was very productive as a wide receiver, but I think by far his best position in the NFL is going to be corner. He's super instinctive. He has great ball skills because of his ability as a wide receiver. He's just so good at reading routes, being instinctive, coming up, making plays. I really do like Travis Hunter, and I do think that he's going to be a really nice corner for whatever team drafts him. I do think he will play some offense, but by far, to me, he's a corner and a really, really good one, especially in zone coverage, those instincts, that athleticism. Give me Travis Hunter here. I definitely think that Todd Bowles could love him if he was available for them. At pick number 13 now for the Indianapolis Colts, there was a lot of connection to Brock Bowers in the 2024 draft. I do think that they can continue to upgrade the tight end position, and Colston Loveland is a really good one. He definitely would have been tight end 2 behind Brock Bowers this year. And he's just very productive, 649 yards, 4 touchdowns. He was a great target for J.J. McCarthy, and I would say was the best target on that Michigan team for sure. Obviously, there will be a little bit more inconsistency at the quarterback position, but I do think Loveland is still going to put up really good numbers, has good athletic traits testing. I think he'll be the first tight end off the board in 2025, and definitely could be a top half of the first round kind of player as well. At number 14 for the Pittsburgh Steelers, quarterback could certainly be in play here. There's just not a lot of certainty for long-term options for Russell Wilson, Justin Fields. I wouldn't say I particularly believe in either one to be long-term answers there. I think Quinn Ewers could definitely be in play here. Like I said, there is a lot of inconsistencies in his accuracy, especially deep accuracy, but the physical talent is there. He was the number 1 high school prospect of all time when he was recruited to Ohio State and then eventually transferred to Texas. So I could certainly see the Steelers taking the swing on him, and that's where we are going to go here. At pick 15 for the Rams, they could definitely go in a couple of different directions. One guy I really, really like in this class, and I think will ultimately be a top 10 player in the class, maybe won't go in the top 10 because of position, is Malachi Starks out of Georgia. He's just a super instinctual, physical type of player. You look at him, he's 6'1", 205, has lots of range, will come up and hit you. He's the kind of player that I think Sean McVay and this defense would love having on the back end there, and I definitely think that he is going to be a fantastic pro. When you were looking at all the players in Georgia secondary this year between Lassiter, Javon Bullard, Tyke Smith, all of them, Malachi Starks is the best of all of them, and I think he will ultimately be a middle of the first round pick for, in this case, the Rams. At pick number 16, this one is just one of those things that I just see the scheme fit. It makes a lot of sense. Mykel Williams out of Georgia. There's a lot of range on where he could potentially go because he is a lot like somebody that Trent Baalke already drafted from Georgia, Trayvon Walker, where the physical traits are absolutely there. The inconsistencies is also very evident, like it was for Trayvon Walker, but 6 sacks in 2023. I don't think he quite exploded to the level that a lot of people thought he would after a fantastic true freshman season, but Mykel Williams could absolutely be a player that tests super well, has the length, the build, all of the things that you look for at 6'5", 265 pounds. He is kind of your ideal type of edge rusher. The traits are there. It's just about the production, the technique, things like that. And, obviously with the Jaguars, they do have Trayvon Walker. Josh Allen, we'll see if he stays there long term, but I definitely think that Mykel Williams could be somebody that has a very wide range. I wouldn't be at all surprised to see him in the top 5, but I also wouldn't be surprised if we're looking back at this a year from now and saying what happened to Mykel Williams. So a big range on this guy, but I could definitely see the Jaguars taking a swing at pick 16 there. At pick 17, I'm going to go with Tetairoa McMillan for the Browns. Obviously, you have Amari Cooper, some other guys that you've kind of put in there, but McMillan's definitely a different kind of player. He's 6'5", 205 pounds. He's so smooth. He moves very well. His route running's awesome. I definitely think that Arizona is going to be pretty good this year. They've got a good quarterback. They've got some really nice playmakers as well. So I could definitely see McMillan having a huge year, being wide receiver 2 in this draft with his traits. And I think that the Browns could definitely use a wide receiver. So this makes a ton of sense for them. That size, that smoothness, the route running, that could all be very enticing for this Browns team, who are picking in the first round for the first time in a long time at this point. At pick 18, the Chicago Bears, my way too early mock draft from 2024, about a year ago, I had the Bears taking JT Tuimoloau, and I think that's what I'm going to be having them take again. Tuimoloau doesn't produce at a crazy rate, had just 4 sacks last year in 2023, but his length, his power, his effort, his instincts are all really, really underrated qualities. And I think Ryan Poles has tended to really like long, physical, athletic type of edge rushers. At 6'4", 270, that definitely fits JT Tuimoloau's profile, and I can definitely see this being a pick that the Bears make come this time in 2025. At pick 19 for the Chargers, going to go with Benjamin Morrison out of Notre Dame. Had 3 interceptions last year. He's a smooth mover. He's not necessarily huge, but at 6 foot, 185, certainly plenty big. And, I think he did a very good job matching up against some of the best in the business last year. He did all right against Marvin Harrison Jr. I think he's a smooth mover. He's got good instincts. Definitely somebody that I could see having another really, really good season. He stepped in as a true freshman and performed really well for Notre Dame. Continued to build on that last year. So Benjamin Morrison, I would not be at all surprised if he is a first-round pick as well. At pick 20 for the Texans, I'm going to go with Harold Perkins, and I think Perkins is going to have a very interesting role. As a true freshman, he looked amazing, kind of came onto the scene, was one of those athletic freaks that a lot of people thought could be like a Micah Parsons type of player. He lined up mostly at off-ball linebacker, but was huge in blitz packages. That's ultimately where I think he's going to have to be used because though they do use him on the edge at times, he's 6'1", 220 pounds. So he's just really undersized to be in that position. I do think there is a chance that he is a little bit of a tweener and doesn't really find a pure home, but I think he's going to be best at off-ball linebacker that uses him on a lot of blitzing rush packages where he can really use his athleticism and his pass rush arsenal, which are pretty decent. I definitely think that he could be a fun piece for DeMeco Ryans to use on this defense. He's just got to find a home and really kind of be put in the role that allows him to succeed the best because he is a very, very talented player. At pick 21 for the New York Jets, who knows what their quarterback situation is going to look like this time, a year from now. But I still think that they can continue to add to the wide receiver room. I think Emeka Egbuka makes a lot of sense. He is somebody that's just a smooth route runner. He can win from the slot or from the outside. I think he's very versatile. You pair him up with another Ohio State receiver in Garrett Wilson. You've got some really nice playmakers on that offense then at that point. And I think they need to continue to add weapons for, Aaron Rodgers or whoever the next quarterback is going to be. And Egbuka makes a lot of sense in that wide receiver room to add him in there to be another playmaker. Then at pick 22 for the Atlanta Falcons, somebody that I do think was a really good prospect, in 2024, decided to stay in school was Denzel Burke. He was really kind of a nice lockdown corner. I thought he could do a lot of different things, zone coverage, man coverage. His instincts are pretty good. I think he's going to have a huge year on this defense with just a ton of talent around him. I definitely think Denzel Burke is going to be somebody that plays himself into the first round and is a really, really good player for Ohio State this year and potentially for the Falcons, who really just don't have a lot of long-term answers at corner. A.J. Terrell's on the last year of his deal. They just don't have a lot of other guys in that room that you're super confident in. So Denzel Burke, I think, makes a lot of sense. For the Dolphins at pick 23, I do think that they need to continue to add to the offensive line. They drafted Patrick Paul, but another guy that I am super interested in is Ernest Green III out of Georgia. 2023, was his really first year starting. He played at left tackle. He kept Demarius Mims at right tackle because they thought Ernest Green was just so good. Only allowed 1 sack on 478 pass blocking snaps. And, this guy definitely, there's some inconsistencies, but I expect him to really kind of turn it on this year. Was a redshirt freshman this past year, like I said, at 6'4", 320 pounds. He's really got all the traits that you look for. And Georgia's been pumping out offensive tackles recently, and I don't think Ernest Green is going to be any different. I certainly expect him to work himself into the first round conversation. Henderson if he's not already there. I expect him to have a huge year. For Miami, it makes a lot of sense. Teron Armstead, likely not your long-term answer anymore at this point. You can't rely on him to be healthy. Even if you drafted Patrick Paul, I think Ernest Green is a different caliber of player, and it makes sense to draft him in this spot here. For the Packers, obviously they're super specific with the type of players that they draft, but one player that I really thought caught my eye was Ashton Gillotte out of Louisville. Had 9 sacks this past year, 85.9 PFF grade, and I really liked him. He's got good size. He is 6'3", 270 pounds as a true junior. I definitely think he showed some nice pass rush moves, has a decent arsenal, so he's somebody that is maybe not super well known at this point, but I can definitely see him being in the first round conversation. And for this Packers team, adding another edge rusher, obviously they have Lucas Van Ness, Rashawn Gary, but they always like to add to the trenches, and Gillotte would make a lot of sense for them to add to that room as well. For the Cowboys, I definitely think that running back is on the table, and Ollie Gordon, he still plays Big 12 football, and, he was in the Heisman race as well. This dude is a really talented player at 6'1", 211 pounds, true sophomore. He definitely has some really good traits. I could see him being a first-round running back. There's also some other really good running backs in this class. I mean, you look at both of the Ohio State guys, Quinshon Judkins, who transferred from Ole Miss. You also have Travion Henderson. Ashton Jeanty from Boise State is an explosive, fun player as well. So this is definitely a position group that is much stronger in 2025 than it was in 2024. But we're going to go with Ollie Gordon out of Oklahoma State for the Cowboys, who need a long-term answer at running back, even if it's not the most important position. At 26 for the Eagles, they, didn't invest in offensive line this year. They tend to really prioritize investing in the trenches. Emory Jones was protecting, the other side of Jaden Daniels on the right side. He definitely has some nice traits. When you look at him, he's 6'6", 315. Like I said, he played right tackle, so he could be the long-term replacement for Lane Johnson. So Emory Jones, definitely someone to keep an eye on. Both of those LSU tackles could be potential first-round picks, and I'm going to go with him here for the Eagles at 26. At pick 27 for the Lions, I think they can continue to get better on the defensive line, and Jack Sawyer really fits the Dan Campbell mentality in my eyes. At an 89.5 PFF grade, had 8 sacks, and he is just somebody that wins with power, with effort. He's 6'4", 265 pounds. He plays the run super well, and I just think that he's a kind of complete player with the right mentality to play in Detroit. Wouldn't be at all surprised if he is somebody that definitely is on their radar right now, and I wouldn't be at all surprised if looking back in a year, we are talking about Jack Sawyer as a Detroit Lion based on what he's put on the field and the type of mentality, effort, all of those things that he's played with as well. For the Bengals, up next at 28, there's definitely a lot of positions they could go with. Offensive line, they addressed somewhat this offseason. They could go with a guard. They could go with a corner long-term as well. But I do think the edge rush position is going to be on their radar. Trey Hendrickson did request a trade. I wouldn't expect him to not be in Cincinnati this year, but ultimately they do need another long-term answer. They have Myles Murphy, but we'll see how he continues to develop. Patrick Payton showed some really nice flashes at Florida State, had 7 sacks. He's super athletic, has some burst, some bend at, 6'5", 239 pounds. He is a little bit lighter for that edge rush position, but he definitely provides that speed and burst off the edge to attack the offensive tackle's outside shoulder and really force the quarterback to step up into the pocket. So Patrick Payton could be a very interesting player, and his traits definitely mean that he could get himself into the first round conversation as long as he continues to develop here further at Florida State. That's going to be who I have the Bengals taking at 28. For the Buffalo Bills at 29, I definitely still think that they need to add at wide receiver. You don't have Stephon Diggs. You don't have Gabe Davis anymore. You did draft Keon Coleman, but Isaiah Bond provides something a little different. Was at Alabama last year, now transferred to Texas to play with Quinn Ewers. He had a productive year, 671 yards, 4 touchdowns. I think he can continue to even build on that further. He's not the biggest guy at 5'11", 182, but he brings something different than the contested catch ability of Keon Coleman. He's more of that separator type, somebody that can get open and really make plays with his route running, his understanding of defenses. So I think that's somebody that the Bills could really value at the end of the first round. At pick 30 for the Ravens, I think tackle certainly on the board. Josh Connerly, somebody that I definitely think could rise through this process. Played at left tackle for the Ducks all of last year. Definitely had some inconsistencies, but I thought he built on a lot of what he did as a true freshman, even though it was kind of limited action. I definitely think that he could be a guy that rises through this process at 6'4", 305. He's got good movement ability. He definitely has length, the traits that you look for as well. So I think he could be somebody that the Ravens target. Ronnie Stanley hasn't been able to stay super healthy. Right tackle, you just drafted Roger Rosengarten, but I didn't have a ton of faith in that pick, so I think Connerly could be somebody that they add, and he's somebody that I do think could be in the first round conversation, so I wanted to get him in here as well. At pick 31 for the 49ers, you could always go with corner Takario Davis. He's 6'4", 185 pounds, so maybe he's in the conversation. He's super long, physical, athletic, but I do think that the offensive line is still something they could look to upgrade, and Tyler Booker is a really nice guard prospect. He's somebody that just has a lot of consistency, 6'5", 335 pounds. A lot of guards don't get into the first round of the draft, but Booker is somebody that, with his talent, I could certainly see him moving into the first round, and that's going to be the pick for the 49ers at pick 31. Then at pick 32 for the Kansas City Chiefs, if they're picking in this spot, I think the whole NFL, besides Chiefs fans, will be revolting, but, for them, if they are selecting here, I think that Walter Nolan could be in play. The defensive tackle position is definitely, up there. Kenneth Grant is another one that I really like. Playing next to Mason Graham, he showed some really nice flashes. 5 sacks, 3 hits, 15 hurries. At 6'3", 339 pounds, I think that they would really be intrigued by him. Walter Nolan is just a little bit more inconsistent. He's got high-end traits and talent, but I'm going to go with Kenneth Grant here for the Chiefs at pick 32. So that's going to do it for my way too early 2025 NFL mock draft. Like I said, more than actually trying to predict exactly where these people are going to go or what draft slots these teams might have. It's just a great exercise to give you an early look at the 2025 NFL draft class, some players to watch for the draft and for the upcoming college football season. Let me know what you think down below. If you like this kind of content, NFL and NFL draft content, please hit the like button down below. While you're down there, hit the subscribe button as well. Both of those are just free and easy ways to support my channel. Let me know that you enjoy my work and lets me keep producing it. So thank you so much for watching. I will catch you in the next one.